Hello, everybody, and welcome to Alternative Interactions. I'm Gary. Today I'm going to be talking about breaking the controller's wheel. And what do I mean by that? It's something that's kind of come up. I've been sitting here. I've got a bit of a cold. I'm fine, no dramas. Taking all the proper remedies and all the homemade stuff, all the good stuff. Nothing pharmaceutical, I can assure you. But I've kind of been sat here pondering a few ideas. And the Wizard of Oz has been off today as well, so she's been able to look after me, bless her. And I've come up, there's one really good concept that we've been talking about, which is really quite a deep one. So we're not going to go there today, but this is kind of be going to be a part two about breaking the controller's wheel. And th this isn't just breaking it physically; it's breaking it here mentally as much as anything as well. And understanding, because I think once we what I'm talking about, and it's a story. All of course, all of this is a story. It's all entertainment purposes. But what I'm fundamentally going to be talking about is just so we can be a bit more mindful and start to perhaps something I say resonates and gives you the opportunity to look at something in a slightly different light and not just accept the way it is. Because just because it's always been like that doesn't mean it's correct. Because being like that in our lifetime is probably a control mechanism. We we think of issues happening one after the other, just like how it is. But in actual fact, the controlling families, the controllers, or the controller works in hundreds of years often, if not thousands of years, which is a concept that's a little bit mind-bending, but they do. So things are pre-planned out, and often the spells are placed in and put sometimes hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years in advance to then have the effect on us when needed. So, so yeah, this is quite an interesting one. Breaking the controller's will fundamentally and breaking the pattern of us. So, so you know me, I like a bit of history, and so our current system in the United Kingdom, and I should imagine it's very, very similar elsewhere within the world. The same controllers run the whole world, and so although I'm looking purely at United Kingdom or England, I should say, England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, because there isn't really no United Kingdom as we know, or no Great Britain. They're just legal fictions. Because I'm actually looking at England or English type system that's affected the group of countries associated here, doesn't mean it hasn't affected. It's not the same with where you are, and I should imagine it's very, very similar because we're all kind of under one law, you know, Admiralty law, and that certainly came in 1666. Now, pre 1660, the England was under the feudal system. I think that law got passed in 900 and something AD, late 900s. And again, I have done a video on this if you're interested, and I might try and find it and stick it up in the cards. There we go. New skill we learnt the other day on the updating Babel. So, but the feudal system was fundamentally put in place, and it was certainly put in place to. It was not a beneficial law at the time, but it turned out to be so. And what that stated was that you only had to work 40 days per year. And in that 40 days of working, that would ensure that you had a roof over your head, enough food, and all the things you needed for 40 days a year work. And then if you wanted to work further, then you could. It's your own choice. but you couldn't be legally made to do so. Now, I've spoken previously about the UK and Oliver Cromwell and how he was backed by a certain group of people wearing tiny hats, and that the UK or England was taken over in 1649 with the demise of King James the First. And what we see is Parliament being taken down, and then we have a series of acts that come into play after this period, and none of which are beneficial to us, you know. So I've spoken about the Cester V Act in 1666, and even the Bank of England was created in the late 1600s. It's all control mechanism. But the Feudal Act was repealed in 1660. And so what that did is that took away people's rights to only have to work 40 days per year. In effect, they created a new system of control. So when I'm talking about they're looking in hundreds of years, they certainly would have known in the 1660s, and it would have been planned pre this, obviously, because they didn't just make the law or repeal that law. They'd obviously been looking at this for some time. But in 1660, there's the line crack. Thank you very much, where we are forced or can be forced to work more than 40 days per year. Now, at our current system, we will work the majority of the year, and if we're lucky, get 4, 5, or 6 weeks holiday that's spent looking after children or whatever, you know. And if you're lucky, really lucky, you can go on holiday. Again, something that the current control system is looking at stopping. So in 1660, with the repeal of the Feudal Act, we created the wheel of control, or they created the wheel of control. You know, so you could call it a treadmill or a hamster wheel, you know, but fundamentally, instead of having lots of time to think about things and ponder the universe, we're suddenly very quickly being taken into a system where we're having to work more and more to pay for our lifestyles and to pay to live fundamentally. So the wheel of control keeps us in constant motion, never stops, never stops. So pre-feudal, you could stop, smell the roses, ponder, and after this period, within years of, we then start to find that we're working more and more hours, and the cost of things are going up, and we're in motion. We're starting to chase our tails to stay ahead and maintain and keep food on the table. Now, the fact that they've kept us in this proportion, this continued proportional movement, fundamentally from, you know, obviously after this period, but you know, you look at the 1800s and the Industrial Revolution as we're sold it, you know, children working 16 hours a day, 6.5 days a week, and on the half day you then had to go to church. That's exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about. And although certain laws were, or rules or regulations were brought in to limit some of this, fundamentally we're still under exactly the same rules and systems. Nothing's changed. And yet we're in a modern society and we're meant to have grown and developed. And here we are living exactly the same way as our forefathers and foremothers did, on the wheel, the controller's wheel. Now, many of you watching me will have had that awakening, shall we say, that period where suddenly the wheel stopped for a time, and that was during COVID, around 2020. And in 2020, many people were put on something called furlough in the United Kingdom, probably around the world, where you were paid to stay at home for a period of time. And that would have been the first time since, for hundreds of years almost, that the ability for a population to stop was allowed and was available in mass. Now, the collective consciousness plays a huge part in this. We're all connected to one. We're all connected to source. Source is connected to the creator. We're all connected. We're all connected. Everything is connected. You know, quantum entanglement via fluid dynamics. If you want to go into the scientific, but the ability to be able to stop meant that in people's informed field, even if they were not conscious of it, allowed them to start asking questions. Many didn't, obviously. Many did. And certainly 2020, from my observation, is a big period when we get this big wedge, massive amount of people suddenly coming online and questioning and doing lots and lots of research. Certainly my partner, Mel, the Wizard of Oz, she was doing research, 15, 16 hours a day, suddenly realized, paching, something's wrong, what's wrong, starts looking at stuff, and it leads on to one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing. And so, what an opportunity. But this highlights very clearly what I'm talking about is that the controller's wheel stopped momentarily. And many of you got off at that point. You know, in effect, they shot themselves in the foot. Now, I believe that they did that for many, many reasons. Um, and partly it's because of the spelling and the spells that have been written out in certain books and literature that they have to follow. Revelations is a big pusher on this one with the Olympic calendar and the time constraints that they've imposed upon themselves as much as they have us. Remember, when they create something, they are party to the creation, but they don't actually create anything. Let's be very clear. When they put the spell out or the manipulations placed out, we then create that because we are the true creators of this realm and they're not. So we then create by deception what they want. But the creation of that deception also locks them into the same deception and the same path. Again, that's a very, very interesting concept, one to be thought about, I think. So, this mass awakening, and it was around 2020, 2021, and obviously it spread a bit like a contagion, um, gave people the opportunity to actually smell the roses for the first time in many, many years. Now, when we start looking at the control mechanisms that they've employed upon us to keep us on this wheel, it's very, very clear. You know, beautiful Femi, ladies and gents, talking to you, you all know, you've all got a very good idea of exactly the concept of the fact that every single part of your life has a control aspect to it or has been party to a control aspect. And it really has. Really has. So the Rockefellers created and took over the educational system, for an example. All of us have gone through, and I say all of us, 99.9999% of us have gone through their education system. Okay. And that's part of a social control via the education, because we're told to shut up, sit down, not ask questions. You know, Rockefeller famously said he wants a nation of people that are clever enough to press a button but not ask why. Fundamentally, you know, the quote. But the educational system, with the social constructs and controls amongst it layered in, has created an expectation of behavior and views and thoughts, and the ability for the masses, when somebody thinks outside the box, for them to stand there and laugh. Just like Nelson in The Simpsons, you know, ha ha. And that's what we get. That's what we get. Because it's part of their social control mechanism, and they are fulfilling the control of the mechanism that's been placed in them unconsciously, obviously. I mean, some of them are conscious of it because, you know, they're just, you know, what they are. But we're also talking about NPCs here, non-player characters. Fundamentally, a lot of which we have created ourselves, which is another one to get your head round. But when we're the controllers and we create the NPCs around us, and we're creating the construct or the pathway of the perception of the reality, then in fact we're creating a system ourselves to enslave ourselves and keep us on this controller's wheel. The hamster wheel, the treadmill, the continuous motion almost of time. Exactly the same kind of concept. Now, this is kept up, this mechanism of control is kept up via TV, film, and media. Advertisements, slogans, the great American dream. Or in cartoons, like Disney, where the princess meets the prince and falls in love and they live happily ever after. Placing control mechanisms into expectations that are unrealistic into a population, knowing that those unrealistic expectations will ultimately create chaos further down the line. And as we're the creators, and as we get the chaos and we buy into the chaos, we then create further and further from this. And we take ourselves further and further away from our true selves, our true inner selves, the true power of ourselves. We then give it away. And we give this away via religion, externalization of our faith, and politics, which is another form of religion. Politics, many parasites. Government, to govern the mind, control the mind, just like religion. In all its forms, from New Age to whatever Roman Catholic, it makes no difference. It's all very, very similar on the same bounds of the controller's will and limiting your thought processes and your ability to think outside the box, and your limit the ability for you to realize that you're the true power and to go within and start to do the internal work that most of the beautiful Femi ladies and gents watching this have done and are continuing to do so. It's a process that never stops. That's why we're curious. We're curious now, aren't we? That's why you watch shows like mine and many other people, because you're curious to what's going to come out. Wonder what they're going to say. Am I going to learn something? Is it going to open my mind, expand my mind? Is this person going to challenge my perceptions? You know, cause cognitive dissonance. That motion. How can you say such things? You know. Sorry, do apologise. Um, It's challenging the perception of the education and the social norms that we're talking about. It's challenging the religious doctrine and the political doctrine. If you vote for this person, they're going to save you. They're the savior. They're going to make your life better. Well, that's horseshit, isn't it? We know it. Every leader, certainly in modern times, but probably for the last 100 years, has been selected, not elected. Selected. And you weren't the one doing the selection. Very famous saying, it's a big club and you ain't in it. Because if voting made any difference, you wouldn't be allowed to do it. You're only allowed to do the things that have no bearing on the ultimate control mechanism of the controller's wheel that keeps on spinning. Sounds terrible, doesn't it? Very depressing, but this is a reality check. This is an observation that leads to other observations, which leads to our freedom and enlightenment, and that's the key. We've all heard about the dark night of the soul. Well, you need to get there before to the dark night to the understanding before you can then start taking the path towards the light, in my opinion. So, none of this that I've just been talking about, the control mechanism, is viable without the one key aspect. And it's an aspect I keep talking about, and it bores people to oh my God, he's talking about it again. That's financial. The feudal act system was taken away for financial reasons, debt slavery, mental bonds rather than physical bonds, the perception of something being worth something when it isn't, and agreed upon, not by us necessarily, not at all, but an agreed upon by the controllers worth of something that we are given the educational, social, media perception of its importance that's that's shown by the church, the politicians. You must get a job. You will work 2.4 children. You must go to university so you can get a better education so you can earn more money. Money, 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 money. In actual fact, what are you really working for? Who are you really working for? Are you working for yourself or are you working for the man? Again, I'm just talking in generalizations. You know, this is a thought. This is a thought thing. This program's about thought. Program. Television program to program the mind. Tell lies in vision. It's all there. It's part of the spelling. You know, one of the styles of writing is cursed. So we spell out in cursed to create the spell, to curse ourselves, to create the bondage within ourselves. You know, so the reason why I feel very strongly that we're on the wheel, we're on the wheel of the controller's wheel, is because while you're running at full speed, you're not aware of what's around you. Remember the 2020 COVID thing where everyone, people were allowed to stop and suddenly, wow. But pre that time, there was no chance or opportunity for you to sit there and think something's wrong in the world. I'm going to look into this. because you are running on that wheel. And this is how they control us. They keep us running, but we only run to stay still, or we run to slowly regress backwards. As we regress backwards, the controller's will takes more and more from us. The greed of the controller's will, as it were. We pay in time, fundamentally, and our time is our life. A mortgage, let's go back to finances. Mortgage, death grip, morgue, gauge. You signed the mortgage for 25 years, 35 years. You've signed a death grip upon your time for 35 years. You've placed yourself in mental shackle for 35 years. And the biggest kicker is that you never owned it in the first place, and you never will own it afterwards. Because if you do not then fulfill what the government wants, they will send their enforcers round via the courts and the justice system and remove it from you. So what were you really working for those years? So if it sounds depressing, I'm sorry if I'm going over old ground, but awareness of all this, then sit back and think about ways. Use this against them. Sit back and observe and think of ways in which you can really, really make that change, affect the change that you want. While we continue to run on the wheel and we engage in their system and their systems, we're only adding more fuel to the fire of the controller system and allowing it to continue at more and more of a momentum. And at some point, though, we see this where the wheels come off their system. And we really are, sorry, I do apologize. We really are at that point financially where the wheels are coming off the system. Now, they've always used wars, conflicts to make money, to back up and fulfill their monetary system, their Fibonacci-based monetary system. But we're not playing that game at the moment. It seems to be, although there's obviously things going on in the world, we're not playing that game. There's no world war. There's no mass destruction. And the wheels coming off the wheel, the controller's wheels coming off. And we're at that point where the wheel is literally about to fall off. Because the wheel's going too quick. And even they can't keep up anymore. Now, the time aspect's really key. They have implemented certain control mechanisms via their spells and their spelling, like Revelations, for instance, where they have timelines set out. They have a group of people whose job it is to ensure that that timeline that's been written is followed by creating certain actions and reactions and issues that's then shown via the media to give the perception of something happening that allows them to then follow their delusional spells and spelling books. But we're the creators. We're the true creators. And when we can see through this deception, there's nothing they can do about it. When we say no, we're not going to, and we envisage and we see a different world, a different realm. Been talking about for a long while now, there's a split coming, timeline split. We're in it. We're in it. And that's awesome. That's brilliant. Because what this does, because the wheel's going so quickly, their will, it's come, they've got no control on it. They've almost lost control of their own mechanism. And those that see this have had the ability to sit back and stand back and then think about ways to change the mechanism spiritually and in an enlightened way, in a frequency way, to change the outcomes. And we're about to see this. We talk about Three Eye Atlas and other things like this, and we're really about to see this happen. When we really understand what money truly is, and again, money is going to be needed for a period into the future, but eventually it will not be needed. But the only true real money is gold and silver. And when you understand this and you remove yourself from their system, holding physically the true monetary system in your hand, it takes away their power. What can they do to you when you truly hold the money? Nothing. Understanding the concepts that I've been talking about, the mindfulness of this, observing what's going on, but not absorbing the energy, staying in that center line of the yin and the yang. To do this gives us the power back, to understand that we're the true creators, to envisage and manifest the future that we want, not the one that they're trying to make us create through blindness on that controller's will, changes the game completely. We see what's going on. We see them for what they truly are. All the digital ID and all this kind of bump that they're bringing in at the moment or trying to bring in, that's panic. That's fear. It's not from us, it's from them. And when we say no, it's not in my reality, it's not going to happen. And in my reality, we go through this amazing world where we work together as communities again, and we drop the control mechanisms of the government. We re-educate ourselves by de-education of their system. There's nothing they can do about it because we're the true power. And together we are a force to be reckoned with. A force beyond which you really truly understand and can comprehend currently. And what we do by doing this is we change the frequency in this realm. This realm is built on frequency, energy. And when we change the frequency and the energy by the information that we have, by the enlightenedness, the connection to our higher selves, the true spiritual nature of ourselves, then we step into love. And they can't handle that. We step into the light. We are the light. We step into love. Love and forgiveness. But love and forgiveness of ourselves first. And at the point in which you love yourselves again, have forgiveness for yourself again, and your trinity, your head, heart, and gut start working together again with your true connection to source and the divinity of this amazing, beautiful realm, there's nothing they can do to us. And at that point, we stand up. And when we stand up, The game that's been laid across our backs falls, and we can really see what's going on, and we can really affect the change we want. And the 3i Atlas coming in is our higher selves from a different dimensional reality and frequency coming in to ensure that happens at this point. We have this. We have this. Now, I'm going to do another show, and in this show, it's just one small little segment I'm going to look at, but it's a very easy, for me, easy way to express and show in an example of the controller's will and how they use that against us via the finances and the government. Okay. So once you see these things, we have no fear. And it's no, what can they do to you? What can they really do to you? You're a sentient being, you're a source player. We control the game, they don't. We are the love and the light of this universe and this realm, and we're connected to the creator. Gaia is coming back online. She's online. The tables have turned. The odds are now in our favor. We have this, and we're in a much better position than it appears that we are currently. I can assure you. I know I did a pendulum forecast regarding, digital IDs and all the bits and pieces, but this part of the play, this part of the reality has to play out so that we can then move on from it. You can't destroy something or you can't remove some frequency or an energy until that energy is there to be seen, and then you can, I'm not having that, and you walk away from it. That's where we are at the moment. We're in a really good place. Really good place. And with that, love, light, and blessings, everybody. And I shall catch up with you very, very soon. Bye.